Board games, board games is what I'm talking about. Board games, board games, I'm not gonna shout. I am starting off this streaming with a little bit of singing, and I am going to play a bit of my keyboard today, and I will play it in some key. I guess you'll have to find out. Soon you'll see. But I'll have beats and board games. That's what I'm talking about. Bezzy Beats and Briefer Blether, I'm not gonna shout. Hello and good morning, good afternoon, good whatever it is, wherever you are. I hope you're well. And I am Bez. I'm playing some Bezzy Beats on the keyboard right now just to give it some musical accompaniment. And there's going to be a bit of Briefer Blether about all sorts of things. Today I'm going to talk about Cascadia because that's a game that I played yesterday. I'm going to talk about variable setup because that's a big part of Cascadia. I thought I'd talk about just anything else that comes to mind. Work ethic and getting stuff done, and let's get on with the show. It's a bit of a vlog. It's a bit of a, hey, this is what I thought about this game. Okay, so to start off, let's talk about recent highlights, living life and seeing the sights. Recent highlights, playing games and other delights. Recent highlights, living life and seeing the sights. Recent highlights, playing games and other delights. Okay, so I guess let's start off with the game Cascadia. That's the game that I played yesterday. It's a lovely game, and here you can see, if you're watching the video, top down, each player has their own area of hexagons. Upon most of these hexagons, you'll place a little circular disc. You start off with 3 hexagons, and that's to give you a bit of choice. You've got a pre-made bit of hexagons. Every hexagon has a terrain type and 1 or more possibilities of creatures that could go upon it. 1, 2, or 3. 1 or 2 terrain types. And in each collection of 3 hexagons with which you start the game, all 5 animals and all 5 terrains are represented to give you something to start with. And this gives you a bit of flexibility, which is lovely. The game itself is super simple. Every turn, you've got to take a tile, by which I mean a hexagon, and a little wooden disc from the board. You put the tile somewhere, touching a hexagon already, part of your area, and you put the disc somewhere where it could go. Normally these are put into 4 random pairs. They're just put into pairings, and you've got to take all of one pairing. Now, as I said, some of the tiles only have place for one animal, and if you go onto the place with one animal, which you would notice here is those tiles have a little white arrow, so there's one tile visible here upon which you could get an eagle or an elk. But if it was just an eagle that could have gone there, then you would have gotten a little feather naturey icon. And these nature icons can be used to give you a little bit more flexibility in how you pick up the tiles and discs. You can use it either to refresh as many as you want from the board, as many of the tokens, or you can use it to take a token and a map and a tile that does not match, like something that is not actually paired. With 4 players, there was definitely a little bit of what you might consider card counting. Looking around the board, knowing that there's 20 of each animal, thinking to myself, am I likely to get my 6th elk, which I need to make to get a complete circle? Am I likely to get another salmon, which would give me another 5 points? Am I likely to get another eagle, which would give me another 5 points? Am I likely to get another fox? Yes, I was very likely to get another fox. We ended up with lots of foxes in the bag. And if you had some awareness of where other people were going to go, then for sure that would help you. And it's interesting how the animals all play out in different ways. In this game, the elks, you had to make them into a circle. The salmon, you had to have a run of up to 7. The foxes score for other things around them, which is very interesting. The bears, you want multiples of 3, groups of 3 exactly, otherwise you score nothing for that group. And the eagles, you score for 3 points for each other eagle that's in a line of sight with it. So theoretically, if I had another eagle and I put it in the middle of that circle of elks, it could be looking at 2 other eagles, and that could have actually gotten me 6 points. But anyway, it was a really interesting game. I enjoyed it. Definitely would happily play it again. Would I jump at the chance? No, but it's a fairly pleasant game. As someone who has played a lot of games, it doesn't do anything astonishing or brand new or anything that you can point to. I guess the one thing that if I had to say what is my one favourite thing about this, it is that pairing of the tokens and the tiles. So they come out in pairs, and that's just a lovely way to say, okay, if you want to have, in this example, if you want to have that blue tile that's at the top, well, you would have to take that bear tile that's just beside it. And it's a nice way to give you a little bit more restrictions. And my other favourite thing about this is the 3 tiles that it gives you at the start. So if you've played optimally, you will still be left with 3 spaces at the end of your game that are unfilled. So every time you will essentially have 4 tiles down just before you put your animal. So essentially 4 possible places to put down the animal. The 3 previously empty tiles plus the 1 that you just took. And this allows almost the perfect balance of variability and forcing you down a particular path but still giving you flexibility. Nice game. That was my major highlight for sure. The other highlight was talking to Jess, who is part of my weekly kind of support group. Ooh. So Jessica Mederingham of Descent Games and Molly Zeff of Flying Leap, and before there were a couple of other folk, but right now it's just three of us meeting up. And I spoke to Jess because it was a Jewish holiday, which meant that Molly was unable to use electricity. So we chatted, and sometimes just getting it out, sometimes just explaining this is what I need to do and this is what I'm up to. Sometimes that is one of the most wonderful things in the world. And that leads me, of course, if anyone has any quick questions for me, whether you'd like to ask me about board game design or anything, feel free to chuck in any questions that you want. But also let me talk about a brilliant thing, what's a little thing which is brilliant? Brilliant thing, what's a little thing which is brilliant? Okay, the thing which is brilliant is just talking through stuff and having someone else listen and having that space where it's, the next 20 minutes are just for you to talk about yourself. And then the following 10-15 minutes are just for us to chat together and for us to focus on your problems and how to make things easier and better for you. And then we're going to do it for the next person. So I think that just talking through things, being given that space, being offered that time, and I also want to bring up a thing here, but to say that let's talk about gifts, let's talk about physical gifts. Sure, they're nice, but what is even better sometimes is an offering of time or labour. And I would really like to normalise when it's someone's birthday or Christmas or whatever, maybe normalise the giving and offering of time and labour. Maybe say, hey, this is my gift to you. I mean, yesterday I played a puzzle that Alex had made just for me and it was fantastic. And I know a sibling of mine who had a friend who said, hey, for Christmas I'm just going to it's not really just, but I'm going to give you some babysitting. I'm going to be here, I'll take care of your children. And you go out, do shopping, get yourself pampered, do whatever you want for a day. And that's a lovely gift. So I guess really my brilliant thing today is just giving people time and energy and space. And I do genuinely believe that this is a wonderful gift, and let's not just focus on the physical, because that leads to over-commercialization. And sure, I would love people to be buying more and more copies of my games and whatnot, but yeah, it's like maybe they've got some gardening that you could do for them, or maybe like doing a bit of cleaning or housekeeping or making a meal or playing a game with them, teaching them one of their games. Or hosting a party or doing something else. And think about what would this person like. And frankly, if someone's got children, like babysitting is always appreciated as long as you're, able. And so that is my brilliant thing for today. Now, let's talk about the main topic that I said I would talk about at the start, which is about variability and random setup. Somewhat inspired by Cascadia. So in Cascadia you have 5 creatures. Every one of these 5 creatures scores differently. Furthermore, each of these creatures has 4 different cards. A, B, C, D. Blaze suggested to me that maybe the A's are easier and the D's are the most complicated. I'm not sure that's the case at all, but I do think that it's just there to give you a bit of variety, so that when you play your first game, maybe you play with all A's, then your second game, maybe you play with all the B's. Then it's going to take at least 4 games to see everything. And once you've just seen everything once, then suddenly you can put them together in different permutations. And the rule sheet. The rule sheet actually has some sort of, I wouldn't call it a campaign, more as a series of challenges. And I'm not sure exactly how it works. It was a little bit hard for me to understand from the rule sheet. But you're basically combining different setups with different things that you have to do, and I found this really interesting. It's basically saying, hey, here's a whole bunch of different ways that you could tweak and see if you can beat this score with this setup. Can you do it? Do you feel up to the challenge? And having that target, I think, is a fantastic thing. And I like the fact that, for sure, they've clearly thought about the different permutations, the different ways it interacts, and they've got additional little complications that you could put on yourself. Now, the truth is, most games don't get played enough for someone to make it through like 50 different achievements and challenges. But something like this could definitely inspire someone to. And it's playable solo. It's also playable whilst you're doing multiplayer. So you could start off and just be like, yeah, this is what I'm doing, and then you keep on going, and eventually you're like, hey, I managed to get to the end of the track and I saw a whole bunch of what this game has to offer. And then at that point, either you fall in love with it or you've grown a wee bit tired of it. And I would say that most games that are above average, like most games that are published these days, I would say that if you play any game 12 times, if you've actually made it to the end of that, you're probably quite a fan of the game. But that's just my hypothesis, theory. I think it's a bit more than a hypothesis, so let's call it a theory. There was a bit of a discussion on Card and Board Game Designers Guild in Facebook recently. Someone asked about, hey, my game has 15,000 different setups, but I don't really believe that someone's going to be engaged for the 15,000 setup. what do you people think about variable setup? And a few people said, yes, it's a trap. And the thing is, something like that is sexy. It sells. Like if I say, oh, my game has more than 1 million permutations in its setup. Like if I could work out, well, I guess 48 times 47 times 46 times blah blah blah. That's how many different versions of Muckle there might be. If I work out 8 times 7 times 6 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1, that's how many nano Muckle there would be. That's still going to be a big number. And I could do the same for Micro Muckle, which goes up to 16 cards. And frankly, what does that even mean? Now, in the case of a truly variable setup with a map, you have to think, is there any bad setup? Because having one bad setup in 15,000 is, in my opinion, worse than having no bad setups in 64. If, assuming that the rest of the game progresses along different ways, assuming that there's some sort of interaction from other players, like maybe some blocking or something. Like here, I mean, sure, there's 4 times 4 times 4 times 4 times 4, 16, 64, 256, about 1,000. So there's about 1,000 setups for the initial what do you see, times, I guess, 5, because there's 5 different starting tiles. So there's about 5,000 of them. But then during the game, there's the variability. During the game, there's the chance. So during the game, you've got the random pairings. And I think it is important that this variability comes in somewhere. It doesn't have to be in that initial setup. And frankly, for those 5,000 is, how different are they going to feel? It'll be like, it just means that along the way, basically what it means is that this game is suitable for people who are easily bored. This game is good for people who like the variety of the new. And that's something that people love, a mixture of newness and oldness. And this gives you, hey, you've got the same framework that you knew. And if you want to change all the things to the Bs, you can after you play all the As. If you want to change one of them to the Bs, you could. And there's also similarity between the 4 different salmon. So there is some continuity. There's some familiarity. Because as humans, we do desire that familiarity. There has to be that element of comfort. And that's what it's fundamentally about providing that freshness, about providing that novelty, about providing that surprise, about providing that new ramifications, even within the same setup. Of course, something like Go, you could say there are 0, like, assuming your handicap doesn't change, there is no difference in how you're going to set up one game from the previous one. But the game itself plays out so differently, and the more interaction you've got between players, the less you need the game to offer the variability, because you want that variation. And let's say in Agricola, even if you're playing the family mode with none of the randomly dealt out cards, well, it's still going to be very different because your opponent or your opponents are going to do different things. And that is a surprisingly... This was the first worker placement game I ever heard of, and I remember watching Scott Nicholson's review of it, and I was thinking, oof, that doesn't sound very interactive. It doesn't sound like there's much of a competition. You're just putting down your person, but I didn't realise what a difference that blocking made. And yep, in Agricola, that blocking adds variation. It means that you have to change your plans. It means you have to roll with the punches. And so there is variability built into it. Because of the other players and the blocking and the interaction. Now, number 9. Let's look at a true multiplayer solitaire game. Like number 9, Muckle, and Take It Easy. So yeah, those true multiplayer solitaire games, all the difference, and any solo game for that matter, the only variation is that which is imposed by the game. Now the truth is that if we were to think about how many subtly different games of Cascadia there are, we should be thinking about the tiles and the random pairings, and the truth is there's quite a lot. And that's like working out how many ways an L deck can be shuffled. And it's probably more than there are atoms in the known universe. And that means that there's enough that you're going to keep wanting to play the game. Imagine a version of number 9 that only had one of each number. Well, that would be one. The first tile that you pick up would be one of these 9, so you've got 9 options. The second tile, let's actually work out the maths. The second tile, there would be 8 options, then 7, then 6 times 5 times 4 times 3 times 2. And that's still 362,000. But if you were to play the first half of the game and get the same first 5 tiles, that would feel incredibly underwhelming. And even that would be insufficient surprise and novelty. Which is why, of course, they have to bring in multiple of each number. Because you do need that possibility of enough variance going on from what you've shuffled up. And so yeah, it feels like variable setup in maps is just a continuation of just an accompaniment to variable setup as game progresses, whether that's tiles being drawn out or the initial shuffle of the deck. But the difference is with that initial setup, you can see it straight away. And I think that's why fully visible randomized setup, not just the deal of the cards that's hidden away, but the number of permutations of the scoring cards that you can say, ooh, this is different. Yes, I can perceive it with my eyes before the game has even begun. I am guaranteed that I'm going to be doing something different. And it's like a promise to the player. It's also like a factor of control that they have. Because they could say, oh, we want to keep it the same. We want to have all A's and play the same all A's again and try to perform a bit better within this same framework. Or we'd want to do something totally different, or we want to do something slightly different and keep some of the A's but not all of them. And so yes, the number of permutations doesn't really matter, but what does matter is, can you control it? Is this something that, like in Cascadia, you can say, oh, I'm going to choose these particular objectives for this game? Is this something where you could say, okay, I'm going to play with these particular objectives to mix it up? Where you could develop your favorites? Where you can guarantee from the start of the game, not only do you have to react differently as the game goes on, but you have to use completely different strategies from the start. Because the truth is, yeah, I am more motivated to play Cascadia, especially if I get to see different scoring cards and see how they play out together. I'm thinking back to David Brain's Roll and Write that I played on Friday. It was very pleasant. But I did come away feeling that maybe I'd played well enough that I wouldn't play substantially differently. And the only way that I know if the game's going to progress differently is like by halfway through the game, by different die rolls. But basically, variable setup is really good for control freaks like me. And yeah, being able to control it, being able to say, just choose the one you want. It's that empowerment. It's that, yeah. It feels good, and it does make me want to play again. A little bit more than a game without it. I'm going to say, yep, it's true. It does work, but it's not the be-all and end-all. Now, of course, these are meant to be briefer blethers, and I have overrun slightly how long I like to do my solo things for. So, at this point, if anyone wants to share anything, if anyone's out there watching live and would like to share something, then please tell me, because it is over to you. What are you up to? You can share, but only if you want to. So tell me, are you up to anything swell? I hope your life's not. I really hope your life isn't hell. Are you up to anything fun? Maybe frivolous? Are you up to anything that is super serious? I'm curious to know if you have any plans. If you're going out shopping for a bunch of food cans. If there's anything that you want to do or that you have to do. Well, if you want to share, then feel free to. Myself, I am going to do a bit of tidying and looking through things. I've got an appointment at 1 PM, which is in 2 and a bit hours. A personal appointment. So, yeah, I'm just going to be doing that, and tomorrow, as usual on a Friday, I will be going to Royal Festival Hall in London to playtest some games, and if you are based in London, then feel free to join me. Of course, if you're not based in London, but you're based close, like let's say you're based in Reading, then you're free to come over. We meet together at 10 AM. Hopefully I'll be there at 10 AM. I will do my regular stream. I'll show you on the mobile phone, pan the camera around the place and show you what Royal Festival Hall looks like. And I'm going to be streaming every day at 10 AM UK time. In advance of that, I do want to draw a new version of a game about grabbing creatures that are totally different and watching out for turnips. So what have we chatted about today? Well, I guess I chatted about Cascadia, the game that I played recently. I chatted about the form of variable setup, how that leads to, you've got the variable shuffle of the deck. But the shuffle of the deck or the drawing of the tiles is exposed to the player in the same way, one turn at a time. So that's a very different manner compared to the variable setup with these cards, with these animal cards that you can see at the bottom of that picture, where each animal is a different way to score. You can see at the start, okay, this is what's different, and I'm going to use this throughout the game. And I think I've basically convinced myself that variable setup that you can see and having somewhat modular rules is just a really good thing. I really like the modular rules that you have control over. If you want to check me out, then of course I am Stuff by Bezzy everywhere. If you want to check out my future streams, then stuffbybezzy.com/streams. There's nothing special happening for the next few days. Friday is very short. The other days I will talk about anything. If you would like me to dedicate a particular show to a particular board gaming related topic, then please let me know. For now, feel free to share, spread the word. Thank you everyone. And that's pretty much it. Bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye. Bye, 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 bye. This is the goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye-bye, everyone. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.